Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm John M. Hawkins. The show is My Strategy, and we're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're very happy to be here with you today and really glad that you could join us. My Strategy episodes are live and on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today, we're going to be talking about developing something new. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the importance of innovation, the types of innovation, top innovations over the past 30 years. I'm going to talk about continuous improvement and also give you strategies to be able to innovate. Now, as you know, this show is all about personal development. So while we are talking about innovation in a business context, that also applies to what we're trying to do personally. Today we're talking about innovation. I'm very happy to be here with you today. Saturday is a great day for us to reflect on what we are doing. It's the day that I choose to reflect on my strategy, but keep in mind that any day is a great day for you to assess your strategy. The My Strategy show is growing and continues to grow. We're available on iHeart, iTunes, Player FM, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and many more digital platforms. You can find us on most social media platforms as well. My Twitter handle is Hawkins John. And my website is John M. Hawkins today. John M. Hawkins, I'm sorry. So the Twitter handle is Hawkins John, and my website is John M. Hawkins. And if you go to those sites today, you're going to see something different. Normally in this show, we have a weekly giveaway, and we've changed the format a little bit. So there is a digital giveaway that you can enter there. And just like anything in life, we need to have a strategy and a plan to help us reach our goals because the best laid plans don't always work. And this week, I'm looking for stories on developing something new or innovations. Do you have any good examples, a tip or a trick, perhaps? If you do, send it to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. All right, today we're going to be talking about developing something new, talking about the importance of innovation. So we're going to cover what is innovation. We're going to talk about what it means in regard to words, reactions, descriptions. What are some of these strategic criteria? And everyday innovations happen with new products, new methods, and new ideas. We're then going to talk a little bit about the top 30 innovations over the past 30 years. Innovations in regard to healthcare, technology, and other innovations. I'm going to then talk a little bit about how we continuously improve or continue to innovate, because it's one thing if you can go out and innovate, but you need to be able to repeat that time and time again. I'm going to go through some ways that you can innovate. We're then going to talk a little bit about why companies who have tried to innovate fail. It's always good for us to take a look at what isn't working and learn from it. And learning from it, we can then, change our strategy so that we can gain the benefits of their failure. We're then going to go through and help develop your strategy. So what is innovation? What is innovation? From a definition perspective, it's the introduction of something new, a new idea, method, or device. And as that applies to our personal development, I want you to start thinking about what that is going to mean to you. Now, it could be a personal strategy. It could be a business strategy. It could be a family strategy. All of these are intertwined. And so from that perspective, put your own lens and filter on it. Got an article here by Michelle Greenwald. She says, what exactly is innovation? Innovation is one of the most bandied around terms in global business today, but exactly what does it mean can be nebulous. Since this is a blog about innovation, she thought it would be important for the first time to post how she thinks firms and entrepreneurs should be thinking about innovation. And it's not just firms and entrepreneurs, everybody should be thinking about innovation, because innovation, you never know where it's going to come from within an organization. We're going to talk a little bit about that later, but that's that mindset, being ready and focused, the entire organization, the entire family, the entire group, the entire unit to be able to innovate. So she's got a couple of ideas here. She says words, original, unexpected, fresh, never thought of before, never seen before, creative, new, and useful. What about reactions? Isn't that clever? What a great idea. Why didn't anyone think of doing that before? How about descriptions? Challenging conventional notions of how things have been done before and bringing new ideas from one industry to another or from one geographic region to another. What about strategic criteria such as creating meaningful points of difference for products and services versus alternatives? Fulfilling unmet customer needs or accomplishing goals. I think that's one thing that many people can find from an innovation perspective is talking to people, finding out what they need. What is their unmet need? What are things that would help them with their life? And we're going to learn a little bit as we go through some of the top 30 innovations. What really is most important? Now, this is a study that was done by one firm, one organization, but you're going to start to find some patterns about globally, what is it that people are excited about with regard to innovation? It says here the best new products and services are frequently offer a number of innovative characteristics, features, attributes, and customer touch points in a combination with products that are innovatively aesthetic and aesthetically in terms of design, material, and often color. Their innovation in terms of product features such as voice recognition, tactile responsive, and synchronicity between devices. And we're learning that today with our new technology as it continues to evolve in the sense that, everything now is connected. We have our mobile devices that are connected to a cloud, that are connected to our computers, that are connected to social media applications. On one device, you can interact with your family, you can interact with a coworker, a colleague, you can interact with somebody in the news media. There's just unlimited ends to which you can connect. Got another article here by the Leadership Principles. Gordon Treadgold is the author. He said, each day, innovators in business world create new products, methods, and ideas. They manage to look at problems differently and come up with solutions others cannot. He says, though 66% of responders in a Deloitte innovation survey stated innovation is important for growth. Businesses that innovate are able to scale up, add more employees, allows them to take more customers and grab a bigger share of the market. It says if your company fits inside a specific niche or industry, it's far from alone. Let's say, for example, you manufacture light bulbs. Tons of companies also manufacture light bulbs. You need to stand out in some way, and you can do that through innovation. And as we start to think about this from a personal development perspective, I want you to put that lens on and start to think about it. Well, here you have an organization in a niche industry that needs to stand out. You represent that organization. You are in a niche industry. And so how are you going to go about thinking about how to innovate, to differentiate yourself in a very complex and competitive marketplace? So from that perspective, that is the tie-in between innovation from a business perspective and our personal development, how these two work together. Now, when you look at this from a customer needs perspective and other things that we're going to be talking about, I really want you to think about that with still not a customer needs, but what are the people's needs and what is it that they could use, because that is how you're going to help differentiate yourself and create your own brand. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about the top 30 innovations over the last 30 years. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, I'm very happy to be here today and very happy that you could join us today as well. Today we're talking about innovation and trying something new. So today we are trying something new. Normally we have a weekly giveaway, and what we're doing now is we're changing that to a monthly giveaway, and it's a lot easier for you to enter. So please, you can go to Hawkins John on Twitter or my website, johnmhawkins.com. It'll give you all the details. You can have up to 5 entries per person. And so the prize package this month is a $100 Visa gift card and a copy of my latest book, Coach to Greatness. All right, so right before the break, we were talking about innovation, what it means, some definitions of it. In this segment, I want to pivot a little bit and talk about the 30 innovations over the last 30 years. Now, these 30 innovations are are one list, right? I mean, there's lots and lots of lists out there. They're not the top 30 innovations. This is according to Knowledge at Wharton. And so they basically put together a study on what innovation was, and they classified it. But from this perspective, let's think about this in terms of it's giving us some ideas for what people think are innovative and what people think is important and necessary for their lives. So from our perspective, as we take a look at this top 30 list, let's start thinking about it from our own vantage point, a personal development vantage point. And the personal development vantage point is, how have I innovated in the past 30 years? So that might be the lens you can put on it. So they said, imagine this was 30 years ago, and if you're reading this article back then, chances are that you would have read it on paper, in a printed newspaper or magazine in your hands. Today, you're probably reading it on a desktop, computer, laptop, or mobile device. The pace of innovation has been so hectic in recent years that it's hard to imagine what innovations have had the greatest impact on business and society. Now, this article is a bit dated, so we need to factor that in when we're listening to some of their suggestions. It says, it is possible to determine which 30 innovations have changed life most dramatically during the past 30 years. That is the question. The Nightly Business Report, the Emmy Awards, PBS Broadcasting, and other groups set out to answer these questions. So they went out to answer this question. So they went out and they said, after receiving some 1,200 suggestions, they received suggestions such as lithium-ion batteries, LCD screens, eBay, the mute button, GPS, suitcase wheels. A panel of 8 judges from Wharton reviewed and selected the top 30 innovations, which they revealed in an online report. Okay, so their top in terms of innovations was the internet, broadband. Number 2 was the PC or the laptop, mobile phones. Number 3. 4 is email. 5 is DNA testing and sequencing of human genome mapping. 6 is magnetic resonance imaging and MRI, microprocessors, fiber optics, office software, non-invasive laser robotic surgery, open source software, light-emitting diodes, liquid crystal displays, GPS systems, online shopping, media file compression, microfinance, and you can kind of get an idea of who the target audience was who filled out, many of this survey here, because it is very, very focused from my perspective on technology. But I do like that we've got healthcare in here. Photovoltaic solar energy, large-scale wind turbines, social networking via the internet, graphical user interfaces, digital photography and videography. But you remember taking pictures back in the day, 30 years ago? It was a bit different than it is today. No dark rooms, no having to go out and process the film or taking it in. RFIDs and other applications. Genetically modified plants, biofuels, barcodes, ATMs, stents. There's a life-saving device, heart stents. SRAM flash memory, antiretroviral treatments for AIDS. So as I go through this list and start thinking about those are some pretty big inventions, some things that did require innovation. And what would our lives be today without any one of them, right? Without the internet, without healthcare, without all these great developments. So I think from that perspective, this is what innovation's all about. It's being able to create something new, something that we had not thought of before. So as you start to think about this from a personal development perspective, what is the absolute craziest thing that you could think of in regard to your next innovation? What is the thing that is the highest platitude, the thing that you don't think you can do? And that is what we want to start thinking about from an innovation perspective. Get those ideas flowing so that we can at least come up with a list of things that we could potentially start to innovate on. There's some more information in this article by Wharton. It says, before the winners could be selected from the vast number of entries, Wharton judges had to define what innovation means in an age dominated by digital technology, medical advancements, and mobile communications. The judges, and they give a list of all the judges who were included here. But the finding here from all of these incredibly well-educated, smart people was that innovation is surprisingly hard word to define. Everyone thinks they know what it is, but when you ask them to explain exactly what an innovation is, it gets very hard. In order to achieve the best results and narrow down the most authentic list of winners, the judges had to define innovation as more than simply a new invention. So not just a new invention, but it's something that creates new opportunities for growth and development. He says, citing cellular technologies, which came in at number 3 on the list, we've gone from 0 to close to 3.5 billion people who have mobile devices and are now connected to each other. And I think that's a good way to look at it from our personal development perspective. An innovation to us is something that creates new opportunities for growth. So what sort of innovations or what sort of things could you do that would create new opportunities for you to grow? In this case, the number one innovation here was the internet, which is no surprise. Also, there's other top innovations with regard to healthcare and other advanced things that are helping us in our day-to-day lives. But really thinking about it from that perspective, if we were to change something in our lives, if we were to have something new, what would that new thing be that would give us the ability to innovate? So I want you to think about that. What would those new things be in our lives that could give us an advantage to be able to innovate? You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about continuous innovation. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins, and we're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, happy to be here today and glad you could join us. Today we're talking about developing something new. Right before the break, we were talking about the top 30 innovations over the last 30 years. And really, from my perspective, I asked you to start thinking about what would be something in your life that if you introduced it would give you the opportunity for new growth, for new development. And again, we are talking about business examples. This show focuses on personal development. So we're going to try and take all of this information and apply it to our own personal development strategy. All right. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit about continuous innovation techniques, because it's one thing to innovate once or have a great idea once, but there's also there's these one-hit wonders, which are bands that created a song that was tremendous, top of the charts, #1. Unfortunately, that was their only hit. We don't want to be one-hit wonders with personal development in our lives. We want to do more than that. We want to have top record sales. We want to be the best in what we can be, regardless of what we're trying to be. You might want to be, the best person who helps with animal rescue. Great, that's a goal to go after. You might want to be the best when it comes to your family life. Great, that's a goal you can go after. You could apply this to business. You might want to be the best in your business. These common things apply everywhere in our lives, and that's what's so exciting about personal development and the My Strategy radio show. So what we're talking about is continuous innovation. I've got an article here by Paul Sloan, and in doing my research, Paul's got a lot of good articles out there, so it was hard for me to narrow down and pick a couple that made sense for us to talk about this week. But I've got this one here that talks about continuous innovation, and he says it's not easy. And if you keep using the same methods, you will experience diminishing results. Try innovating. How you innovate by employing some of these ideas. So he wants us to start thinking about it. He says, how hard is it to innovate? Not once, but over and over again. How can you repeatedly implement great new products, processes, or services? Continuous innovation is not easy, and if you keep using the same methods, you will experience diminishing results. Trying to innovate how you innovate by employing some of these new ideas. Isn't that the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results? Seems to apply in this particular situation. So as we start to think about innovation and we're thinking about the things that we do on a daily basis, how many of those things are going to get us to a innovation, to get us to a point where we can create something new? Or are we in our old patterns, our old habits that we do time and time and time again that really aren't going to help us get to that next step? So he's got some ideas for us to go through. We're going to go through the list and see what we think. Number 1, copy someone else's idea. Well, that's novel. One of the best ways to innovate is to pinch an idea that works everywhere else and apply it to your business. Henry Ford did this with the production line. He saw the production line working very well in a meat packing plant, and then he applied innovations. Typically, they will ask for new features or that you make your product cheaper, faster, easier to use. So there's an idea. Copy someone else's ideas. We've got observe customers. Don't just ask them, but watch them. Try to see how customers use your products. Do they use them in new ways? This is what Levi Strauss saw when they found customers ripping their jeans. So they brought a line of pre-ripped jeans. Heinz, the ketchup, well, predominantly known for their ketchup, but they noticed that people stored their sauce jars upside down, so they designed an upside-down bottle. How easy was that innovation? Watch your customers, see what they're doing, and then copy it. Give them what they want. So how does that apply to personal development? How does that apply to us? Who are the people in our observable universe that potentially could be providing us with this valuable feedback? Are we open and willing to listen? Do we see their perspective? So these are some of the nuances when we're trying to look at this from a personal development perspective, where we need to start thinking about our ecosystem, the people we're engaging with, working with, interacting with in a slightly different way. They've got another one here, use difficulties and complaints. If a customer may have a difficulty with any aspect of your product, or they register complaints, then you have a strong starting point for innovations. Make your product easier to use, eliminate the current inconvenience, and introduce improvements over complaints. How many times do you get feedback that you don't like? I've gotten feedback that I don't like. How do I deal with that feedback? Number 1, I could say, consider the source. I don't trust that person. Why would I take their feedback seriously? Or I could say, wait a minute, there may be some truth to that feedback. I know I'm not perfect, and I know other people aren't perfect, but it doesn't hurt for us to at least evaluate where they're coming from and then make an educated guess as to, are they really coming from a source of truth, or perhaps could they be experiencing something in their lives, and then whatever I did or said was perhaps a trigger that got them going. Combine your product with something else. That's a good one. Eliminate. What could you take out of your product or service to make it better? Dell eliminated the computer store. Amazon eliminated the bookstore. Ask your staff or people in your inner circle. Plan. Include targets for new products and services in your business plan. Run brainstorming sessions. Examine patents. Collaborate. Minimize or maximize. Take something that is standard in the industry and minimize it or maximize it. Starbucks, maximize price and customer experience. Run a contest. Watch the competition. Outsource. Use open innovation. Adapt a product to a new one. Try a quiz. Go back in time. Look at what worked in the past. There's a lot we can learn from things that happened in the past and what worked in the past. Or what about social media? How can we go out there and look at the trends? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. All these digital platforms we can learn from. So from where do we go about doing continuous innovation? The answer is that it depends, and we need to really try different things to maximize our innovations. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about why businesses fail at innovation. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. This is My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, and we're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Right before the break, we were talking about continuous innovation. We talked about some 21 or so different ways that we can continuously innovate. Well, if you're just joining us, welcome to the show. My Strategy episodes are live and on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today we're talking about developing something new. In this episode, I'm talking about the importance of innovation, the types of innovation, top innovations over the past 30 years, talking about continuous improvement, and I'm giving you strategies to help you innovate. And with the thought of innovation, I have changed how we do our weekly giveaways. So now we're doing a monthly giveaway. So you can go to Hawkins John on Twitter. The pinned tweet up there gives you all the rules on how you can enter. Basically, there's 5 chances for you. Or you can go over to my website at johnmhawkins.com. Exactly the same promotion. 5 chances to win. And you'll either, if you do win, you'll get a $100 Visa gift card and a signed copy of my most recent book, Coach to Greatness. All right. So right before the break, as I said, we were talking about continuous improvement. But guess what? It doesn't always work. And in this segment, I want to talk about reasons why companies fail. We're going to talk about why they fail, but also I want to talk a little bit about some strategies that you can use to be more innovative with regard to, and that's using a technique called design thinking. All right. So I've got this article here by Ideas Spoke, and it says 7 reasons why innovation fails in an organization. And again, we're applying this to our personal development. So when I talk about the organization, an entity, a company, a firm, whatever legal entity, S Corp I'm talking about, we're going to apply that to our own personal lives. And you can say, I'm working for my nonprofit, I'm working to make my family better, or you could be applying this to business. A great thing is that a lot of these things are intertwined, right? Our personal lives are intertwined with business. What happens at home directly impacts what happens at business. And if something at home impacts us at business, that has an impact on our customers as well. Everything is connected, right? If you show up sick and we're supposed to be at a meeting, if you don't perform well because the dog was sick or something, all of these things are connected. So put your own lens on this as we start to talk about these concepts. Don't feel like you have to be looking at this from a business perspective, because that's not the case. The reason we use these techniques is because they're time tested, and these organizations have grown massively using these tactics and strategies. And this was something that I focused on in one of my earlier books, which was Building a Strategic Plan for Your Life and Business. All right, so let's jump into this. So it says an organization's success depends on its ability to innovate. Innovation is necessary for an organization to survive in this fast-paced environment, either to stay in the market, gain competitive advantage, or ultimately make revenue. And in our personal development case, how are we going to grow? How are we going to provide opportunities for us to explore new opportunities? And that innovation is going to be the leverage, the fulcrum to get us there. But in this process of solving a problem, organizations fail in their innovation approaches. Failure may not only be credited due to innovation alone, but with respect to products, projects, or even in mergers and acquisitions. According to a process expert, Robert Cooper, out of every 7 new products, about 4 of them enter into a development phase. 1.5, so 7 new products, 4 enter into new development phase. 1.5 of them get launched, and only 1 will succeed. So that's how tough the product success rate is, which leads to the question, why do you think innovation fails? They've given us some reasons and some pitfalls for us to avoid. Number one, not thinking long term. Most businesses tend to focus on short term goals and results than thinking from a long term perspective. Each organization sets its goals, results to achieve the next quarter results, and the strategy for achieving those. However, in doing so, they may be short-sighting themselves and not investing in R&D. From a personal perspective, what are your goals and objectives? What are you investing in? Are you focusing on investing in the short term, spending your time on your digital platforms, playing video games, watching TV, chatting it up with friends? Is that where you're investing your time? Or are you investing your time in strategic things that are going to give you higher dividends than investing in those short-term things that you're working on today? Lack of innovation mindset. Another reason why innovation fails is due to the employee mindset within the organization itself. The culture for this mindset has to be cultivated within an organization, starting from the top and permeating in every level in an organization. All right, so I want you to, it says organization, but think about this. In your family unit, in your church organization, just fill in the blanks, with regard to your specific organization or who the group of people, the Boy Scouts, I don't know, pick something. Think about it from that perspective. And is there a culture of innovation within that group? Is there somebody or a mindset that everybody has where they start thinking about the innovations? Well, I can tell you right now that if you're not in an organization that's going to support innovation and does not support it, odds are there will be zero innovations. Absolutely zero innovations. So as you're starting to, work and trying to come up with innovations, in some cases it is the organization itself which is limiting innovation, and some of them do it because they're in their ways. They've done it for so long, and because they've done it for so long, that's how they're going to continue to do it. But if you're looking for innovate, it is definitely a way to, and you're not thinking about it from a mindset perspective, you will fail. Another one they have is fear of failing. Many times organizations have tried something in the past and it was a big failure and didn't work, so they're just not willing to try it again. What about lack of innovation structure and process? When you lack structure and process in your innovation strategy, it's hard to get tangible results. It says most organizations do not have a methodology or framework or a structured process. Well, that definitely could be a hindrance. What about not understanding your customer needs? Innovation can also fail when organizations don't know what their customers' wants and needs are. A lot of new innovations fail because organizations are unaware of what user problems are and what they're trying to solve. What do their customers want? Number 6 is a lack of a team motivation. You cannot innovate alone, or it's not one person's job. And this is a great point here. It is up to the team. It is up to everybody in the organization, in the group, to be able to innovate. And finally, another reason they fail is the lack of budget. They do not have the budget or the money invested in these innovation approaches. Odds are you are not going to have it as a priority, and it will not succeed. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. In our next segment, we're going to talk about how to develop your strategy. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. The show is My Strategy, and we're coming to you from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, welcome back, everybody. Happy to be here today and really glad you could join us. Today we're talking about developing something new. We're talking about innovation. Right before the break, we were talking about why companies and organizations fail with their innovation, and it had a lot to do with the mindset. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit about developing our strategy. Now, strategy comes down to our systematic approach for developing a strategy. And from my perspective, I built a 5-step process that we start thinking about, that we can use as a framework on this show as we're trying to go through and build any strategy. And the goal is just to have a simple, something that fits on your hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that you can use just to start thinking about, do I have the right strategy? So the 5 steps are, 1 is the awareness. I need to be aware that I have something that I want to accomplish. Number two is the assess and analyze. If we have a current situation, what is that current situation? Where are we within that current situation? What is the data points that we can pull from it? Then we want to start to strategize and plan. And strategize is identifying the courses of actions that we can take, also the courses of actions that we're on, and we want to really think about how we can augment our current plan with these new strategies and tactics. We then, number four, is implement your plan, where you start executing your courses of actions. And then number five is the support and development. You know, in many cases, there's nothing we can really do on this earth that I can think of where we haven't had some help from someone. All of us had a mother or somebody, a caregiver, a nurturer, somebody who gave birth to us, and somebody then who took care of us. It could have been the mother, could have been somebody else. But without that person, you wouldn't be where you are today. You wouldn't be anywhere. You had to go to grade school. You had to get educated. You had to have mentors. You had to eat. There's lots of things that you could not possibly have done by yourself. So anyone who says they're self-made and can do anything on their own hasn't really considered everything with regard to the help they've gotten. So from that perspective, I want us to start thinking about, you know, how we can use each other and work together to help us all reach our goals. I need help every day, and others do as well. So let's think about that from that perspective and how we can help each other. I've got an article here for us to start thinking about our strategy. It's by Chuck Fry, and it's called The Importance of Building a Strategy with Innovation. And so basically he says the importance of having an integrated strategy and innovation process is, he says, as difficult as it is to get a group of people to agree on definition of innovation, which we learned about in our first segment, he says it's even more complicated to get people to agree on what constitutes a strategy. Strategy is about positioning for sustainable competitive advantage, making choices about which industries, products, services to deliver, then allocating those resources to achieve the unique competitive position an organization is aiming for. Ultimately, the goal of the strategy is to achieve long-term, sustainable, superior performance. Now, with personal development, all of this still applies. We just have to take a look at it from our own perspective. Who are the customers in our lives? What are the products that we provide? What are the services? You know, those things apply to us as well. He says here the focus on strategy is about creating value by satisfying customer needs and wants better than anyone else. In your own personal lives, if you're the most popular in the neighborhood, why are you the most popular in the neighborhood? Do you put on Halloween parties? Do you reach out? Do you put surprise gifts on people's doorsteps? Right? Let's keep this real simple. If you're in a neighborhood, if you're in an apartment complex, how are you differentiating yourself? That's a personal level. That's personal development. If everybody knows you in the neighborhood, there's a reason they know you, and most likely you're investing the time. You have a strategy. Well, take and extrapolate that out to a business perspective, and it's just 10, 20, 100 times what you do on a local level. So that's how all of this relates and how interdependent everything. So it says this doesn't sound a lot like what innovation is trying to achieve. In order to focus on resources of an organization on developing the most effective innovations possible, those innovations that will generate the most customer value and create new things will also serve customers better than anyone else. The efforts of the company's people need to be closely tied to achieve business strategy, achieving the vision of what the company can be. From our perspective, we all have goals. We have a vision. We think we know where we want to be. It's very similar. It says in the process of discovering what the customers are doing, innovators create new options to meet unarticulated needs. That means that the customers or your social group has not told you they need it. By generating new options, this process allows a company's leaders to see new opportunities for growth that their existing strategy has not taken into consideration. New opportunities then lead to a new vision for what the company can be. The new vision for what the new company can be. The new vision for what our lives can be. Strategy and innovation are tied so closely together that it's hard to know where one stops and the other begins. What matters most is that the processes for innovation is just focused on the next product extension, but it's not that. It's more important that it really focuses on what we are trying to do. And I think this comes back to the mindset. Does everybody have that mindset in place that innovation is important? Is everybody aligned to that? In this case, they're talking about senior leadership. But where are you trying to apply this particular innovation topic? Where are you looking to apply this? If it's the Boy Scout group that your children are a part of, are the leaders innovative? Is that an organization that even supports innovation? And if it isn't, then perhaps you're wasting your time trying to seek and having an expectation that there is going to be innovation because they don't have an innovation mindset. Whereas if you belong to another group that focuses on innovation, and that's really what they want to do, be the most innovative, then you're going to find what you seek. Now, not everybody is excited about innovation. Not everybody wants change. But if you are looking to innovate, if you are looking to change how things are done, then this is how we do it. So from that perspective, innovation is something that we need to be thinking about hand in hand with our strategy. We can't separate the two, but putting the two together is going to give us a better outcome. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about putting your plan in place. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, happy to be here with you today and very glad that you could join us. In case you missed this broadcast, keep in mind that you can listen to it on iHeartRadio, Apple, iTunes, or many other digital platforms. And if you'd like to have something covered in the show, you can send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. or give me a phone call at 844-MY-STRATEGY. Also, it's important to note that we have changed the weekly giveaways that we have, where you get a Visa gift card and a copy of my latest book, Coach to Greatness. Now you can go to my Twitter handle, which is HawkinsJohn, or go to my website, johnmhawkins.com, and there's 5 ways that you can enter to win. So that's a bit of a difference that we're doing this week and going forward for the rest of the month of November. All right. So this week we've been talking about innovation. We've been talking about developing something new. So from my perspective, we've learned about what innovation is and what really does innovation mean. What is a description of innovation? Is it with regard to words, reactions, strategic criteria for innovation? Every day, innovation does happen. There's new products, methods, and ideas. In fact, we learned some of the top 30 innovations over the past 30 years, and we learned about the top one, which was the internet, healthcare, stints, human genome mapping. All these things are innovations that we have developed over the past 30 years. And from that perspective, innovation is something that really isn't about just doing new products and coming up with something new. But really, it's a platform, a concept, whatever it is, that's going to help us find new opportunities for growth. So in the case of the internet was founded, and now we have this huge network exchange of information. Well, how much additional research was able to be done in healthcare or technology were we able to do by sharing and having information at our fingertips? That's where an innovation provided new opportunities for growth. So as we're thinking about these innovations, I want you to think about this from a personal development perspective. What are those areas that you need to develop in? What are those things, those innovations that if you had, you would be in a better position to be able to provide unlimited growth? That's what we're trying to identify in this show today. We then talked about continuous innovation. It's one thing to innovate once, to be a one-hit wonder, to have a song that was at the top of the charts once. But what about those who were able to continuously innovate, provide not only one song, but hits, then last a generation or last, 10, 20, 30, 40 years? All of those things are what continuous innovation is all about. So we want to be in this mindset of innovation where everyone we talk to, everything we do is geared toward innovation. Now, assuming that you want to have innovation, not everybody wants to innovate. We then talked a little bit about why companies do fail, And it's because they really are not able to execute. They're not able to be creative. They get stagnant. They start thinking about things from, one perspective, or they have a huge success, an innovative success, and then they go do another innovation and it fails. And so people are scared to submit ideas. It could be that, from an innovation perspective, the company doesn't support it. The mindset isn't there. The employees don't support it. Lots of reasons why companies fail, and I think it's important for us to realize that if we are not innovating, if we are in a position where we want to innovate, if you do nothing, nothing will happen. And it is important for us to find out how we adjust the strategy. We then talked about developing our strategy and how we go about figuring out how to be better innovators. What are the things we're not doing within our lives that we could be doing to help us innovate? And from that perspective, it all comes down to breaking those bad habits. But first, we need to be aware of those patterns that we're doing in our daily lives. We also have to have a conscious prioritization. We have to commit to our goals and intentions. We have to have clarity in what we are trying to do. And isn't this show all about clarity? Isn't my strategy about identifying our roadmaps, our goals, our actions, our plans, and having clarity? Because when you have absolute clarity and know exactly what you're supposed to be doing on a day-to-day basis, and when you do these things, there is a future that will look like X, that is when you're in a great position for extreme growth and massive success. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. That's all we have for you this week, but we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.